I'm Anna. I'm 28. For years, I thought I was the lucky one, the good daughter, the one who was appreciated for being responsible, dependable, the one they could count on. Turns out I was just convenient. It started slowly, like most traps do. After graduating with my degree in finance, I didn't move across the country or chase a dream job. I stayed in my hometown to help my family. My mom had some health problems, my dad had just switched jobs, and my younger sister, Chloe. Well, she was the wild one. Parties, impulsive moves, and lots of emergencies that needed bailing out. So when I got my first full-time job at a mid-sized financial firm, I offered to help. Just until things settle, I said. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of paying their overdue bills, just this once, co-signing a loan, just to improve their credit, and even covering part of their mortgage when Dad's hours were cut. I didn't mind. Not really. Family helps family, right? That's what they always said. It became normal. I'd wire money at the beginning of each month. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. Somehow, by the end of the year, I had transferred over $8,000. But every time I tried to talk about boundaries or asked when things might change, the guilt set in like clockwork. Chloe's struggling. Mom would sigh, massaging her temples. We're not asking for much, Dad would add. You're so lucky to have a stable job, Chloe would say, like my success was some accident she had helped cause. So I stopped asking, and just kept giving. I was working 50 hours a week, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, skipping vacations, while Chloe posted pictures from spas and rooftop bars with captions like, "Self-care is essential." I remember once she asked if I could spot her $300 for her car payment. She was going to a concert that weekend and didn't want her account to dip too low. I sent it. Of course I did. But something shifted 2 months ago. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had driven out to my parents' house to drop off groceries and help Mom with some paperwork. The usual. They'd had people over the night before. Wine bottles still lined the counter, and the air smelled like stale cigars and cheap perfume. I was in the hallway when I heard them, my dad, Mom, and Chloe, sitting around the kitchen table. I hadn't realized they were still drinking until I heard the clinking of glasses and the lazy drawl in Dad's voice. Then I heard it. Clear, cruel, like a slap. She's too stupid to realize we've been using her for years. They all roared with laughter. My legs froze. My hand tightened around the grocery bag I was still holding. For a second, I wondered if I'd heard it wrong. But then Mom chimed in. She thinks she's being helpful. Bless her heart. That girl would co-sign a loan for a stray cat. More laughter. Then Chloe added, she thinks she's part of the team. It's honestly adorable. I backed away slowly, heart thudding in my chest. I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. I just walked out the back door, got in my car, and drove home. I don't remember the drive. Just the silence. The way betrayal feels like static in your ears. The way your stomach drops not because you're surprised, but because, deep down, you always kind of knew. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I kept replaying it in my head. Every dollar, every favor. Every time I canceled a plan or tightened my own budget so they could get through a rough patch. All of it, a joke to them. And yet, when the mortgage withdrawal was scheduled that Friday, the $5,600 payment I'd agreed to cover for the next 3 months after Chloe accidentally maxed out Mom's credit card, I hesitated. Then I opened the banking app and hit cancel. It was a small click, but it felt like cutting a rope I hadn't realized was wrapped around my throat. I didn't say anything. Not yet. But when the payment bounced and the bank called them about the missed mortgage, that's when things got interesting. And the knock on my door the next morning, that was just the beginning. The knock on my door came at 9:12 a.m. I was still in pajamas, coffee halfway to my lips, when it happened. Loud, hurried, not polite. The kind of knock you hear when someone isn't visiting. They're coming to demand. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. There, on the other side, stood my mother. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun, and that particular fire in her eyes that used to be reserved for teachers who gave Chloe bad grades. She didn't even say hello. "What did you do?" she snapped, pushing past me without waiting for an invitation. "Why did the bank call us this morning saying the mortgage wasn't paid?" I blinked. "Good morning, Mom." "Don't play cute, Anna," she hissed. "You said you'd handle it this month. Your father is furious. Chloe's in tears." I walked back to the kitchen, keeping my pace calm. I poured my coffee, even though my hands were trembling slightly. "I canceled it," I said simply. "It's not my mortgage. It never was." She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "But you said—" I know what I said. "That was before I heard you three laughing about how stupid I am for helping you." There it was. Silence. A rare, heavy silence from my mother. So I continued. "You really thought I wouldn't hear you? I was standing in the hallway. Every word, every laugh. I heard Dad's exact sentence. And yours. And Chloe's." Her face paled slightly, but only for a moment. Then the mask came on. The one she wore during PTA meetings and church socials. She folded her arms. "You're taking this too personally. We had too much wine. People say things." That wasn't wine. That was honesty. For a moment, she looked like she might actually apologize. But then the switch flipped, like it always did. The guilt card was played, the words rehearsed. "Do you even understand what we're going through, Anna? Your father has been stressed beyond belief. Chloe's been trying to hold it together for this family. We're not perfect, but we're your blood. You don't just walk away from your family because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I said, stunned. "It's not one mistake, Mom. It's years. Years of manipulation, of using me financially, emotionally, and then mocking me behind my back." She sat down at the table, suddenly looking tired. "Do you think we asked for this? Do you think we wanted to depend on you? No parent wants that." "You didn't ask, Mom. You expected. And when I gave, you made it seem like it was never enough. Do you realize I haven't bought a new pair of shoes in 2 years? I've skipped vacations, worked overtime, ate canned soup for weeks just to keep up with your emergencies." "Because you're better off than us," she shouted. "You're single, no kids, no husband. Your money is just sitting there." "It's not just sitting there," I snapped. "It's mine. And even if I was a millionaire, that wouldn't give you the right to drain me dry." A pause. Then she tried another tactic. "Fine. If you want to be selfish, be selfish. But you should know, if the mortgage isn't paid in the next 10 days, we're at risk of foreclosure. Chloe and I are both on the title. You're not just hurting your father, you're ruining your sister's life." I looked at her, really looked at her. There was no regret in her eyes, no remorse, just entitlement disguised as concern. Concern for themselves. Never once had they asked if I was okay. I said nothing. She stood up, smoothing her cardigan like it was armor. "You think you're making some grandstand, but all you're doing is burning bridges. Family forgives, Anna, but family also remembers." I followed her to the door. That's exactly what I'm counting on. When I closed the door behind her, I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I grabbed a notebook and wrote one sentence across the top of a blank page. "Everything I've done for them. Starting now, I take it all back." Because here's the thing about being the stupid one. You see everything, eventually. And once you do, you stop waiting for apologies. You start writing your own ending. 3 days after Mom's surprise visit, I got a text from Chloe. "We need to talk. Please." I didn't reply right away. I stared at the screen for a while, the familiar knot forming in my stomach. There was no apology in her message, no recognition of what had happened. Just that vague, manipulative tone she'd perfected since we were teenagers. The kind that sounded innocent on the surface, but always came with a hook. I didn't respond. That night, my phone rang 6 times in a row. Dad, Chloe, then Mom. I muted it and kept reading the book I'd picked up at the library. It was the first time in months I'd read for pleasure, without the weight of guilt whispering in the background. But silence only made them louder. The next morning, I got to work early, hoping to focus. Around 11 a.m., I stepped into the break room to grab a coffee. When I came back, my phone had 5 new messages, all from Chloe. "So you're just going to ignore me now? I know you're mad, but this is ridiculous. Do you even care that we're about to lose the house? If it gets foreclosed, Mom and Dad will lose everything. I'll lose everything. We're family, remember?" I almost laughed out loud at that last one. Family. The same family that used me like an ATM. The same people who laughed about how stupid I was for being generous. And now? Now they were drowning. And suddenly I was their life raft again. I didn't reply. Again. That evening, there was a knock on my apartment door. Not frantic this time, gentle. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Chloe. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there like she expected me to hug her or invite her in. I didn't. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I leaned against the frame. "Go ahead." She took a breath. "Look, I know we said things. That night, it was dumb. We'd been drinking, but come on, Anna, you know we don't really think you're stupid." I raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm just imagining it? That I made it up?" "No, I didn't say that." She backpedaled. "Just people vent. People say things they don't mean." "You didn't sound like you didn't mean it." She looked down at her shoes, then back up, her tone shifting. "Fine. Maybe we were ungrateful. I'm sorry, okay? But you've made your point. Can we move on now? Can you just help us pay this mortgage, at least this once, and then we can figure out a plan going forward?" I almost admired the audacity. "You want me to forget everything, pay $5,600 and just trust that suddenly everyone's going to change?" "It's not like that," she said, voice cracking slightly. "Mike and I are behind on rent too. I've maxed out 2 cards. Mom's a wreck. Dad's not eating. You have no idea what kind of stress they're under." I stared at her. "Do you remember when I was working 60 hours a week and still picking up your kids every Friday because you and Mike needed a date night? Or when I co-signed your car loan and you didn't make a single payment until it was repossessed? And my credit tanked?" "That was different." "No," I said calmly. "It wasn't. You've all been leaning on me for years. And I let you. I told myself it was love. That's what love looks like, right? Sacrifice? But it wasn't mutual. It was exploitation. The moment I stopped being useful, you started panicking. Not because you love me, but because I closed the tap. Anna, we're not perfect. Neither am I. But I didn't laugh when you were struggling. I didn't call you stupid when I helped you." She was quiet then. Really quiet. I opened the door wider, just for a second. "You should go." "Are you really going to let the house go into foreclosure?" she whispered. I didn't answer. She took a step back. This isn't who you are." I met her eyes. "Number. This is exactly who I am. You're just seeing it for the first time." When the door closed, I leaned against it and exhaled. It wasn't easy. Everything in me wanted to run after her, to fix it, to say fine, one last time. But I didn't. Because they weren't just asking for money anymore. They were asking for my silence, my continued obedience, my continued sacrifice. And I'd sacrificed enough. The foreclosure notice came 2 weeks later. I didn't find out from my family. I found out because the mortgage company sent a duplicate letter to me, since I was still listed as an emergency contact on their paperwork, a detail I'd forgotten about. I stared at the envelope, a strange calm settling over me. 30 days to vacate if payment isn't made in full, $5,641.78. Interest included, due immediately. I set the letter down and made a cup of tea. There were no frantic texts that day, no tearful voicemails. Just silence. Like they were hoping if they didn't acknowledge it, the problem would go away. Or maybe they were waiting for me to break. That had always worked before. But I didn't. Instead, I started reviewing documents. I pulled up old bank transfers, loan agreements, co-signed car payments, even the utilities I'd paid for their house over the years, just to help. It was all still in my email. Receipts, statements, screenshots of frantic late-night messages asking for help. The digital paper trail of my slow erosion. I made a spreadsheet. Not because I planned to sue them or demand reimbursement. I knew better than that. They didn't have anything to give. But I needed to see it. All of it. In black and white. Total. $47,823.44. That number hit me harder than any insult ever could. Nearly $50,000, not spent on something I loved, not invested in a home or my future, but quietly siphoned away to hold together a life that never included me. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had let it get this far. Then I remembered something Chloe said last year. She had been bragging at Thanksgiving about how she was so smart to get Mom and Dad to put her on the house title years ago, just in case anything ever happened. I remembered her laughing, saying, "Let's be honest, Anna will never want this house anyway." And she was right. I didn't want the house. But I wanted something else now. Freedom. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted them to finally understand what it meant to stand on their own. The next day, I took a long lunch from work and drove out to the county clerk's office. It took all of 10 minutes to confirm what I already suspected. The mortgage was in Mom and Dad's name, but Chloe was on the deed. Joint ownership? Interesting. On the drive back, my phone rang. It was Dad. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. I finally picked up on the fourth call, more out of curiosity than concern. His voice was hoarse, tired. "Anna, we need to talk." I didn't respond. "The house. We got the notice. We don't have the money. Your mother's been crying for days. Chloe doesn't know what to do. She's scared. We all are." There was a long pause. Then, softer, he added, "We shouldn't have said what we did that night. We were drunk. Stupid. It was cruel. And I'm sorry." I sat in the parking lot, listening to the man who raised me finally acknowledge what happened. But even then, even in the apology, it wasn't about me. It was about fear. About losing the roof over their heads. About consequences. "Do you remember my 24th birthday?" I asked suddenly. There was a pause. "What?" "You all forgot it. Chloe called me that night asking if I could Venmo her for sushi. Mom told me she was too tired to bake a cake. You and I didn't speak for 3 days because I told you I didn't want to help with the car insurance that month." He didn't respond. "That's the thing, Dad. You only call when you want something. You only say sorry when it's already burning down. I've spent years setting myself on fire to keep you all warm. I'm done." His voice cracked. "Please, we'll lose everything." "No," I said. "You'll lose the house. Not everything. You'll still have each other." And with that, I hung up. That night, I emailed the mortgage company and officially removed myself from all emergency contact lists and communications. I was no longer a participant in the lie. I was no longer their safety net. Then I did something small. Quiet. I lit a candle, took a long bath, read a book, ate an expensive dessert I used to avoid because money's tight. And I smiled. Because they hadn't realized yet. The real mortgage they'd lost wasn't the house. It was me. The first weekend after the foreclosure notice expired, I didn't hear from them. No calls, no messages, no updates. Just silence. You'd think it would have felt peaceful. It didn't. Not at first. For years, I had been conditioned to their noise, Mom's guilt trips, Chloe's constant emergencies, Dad's disappointed sighs. Their chaos had been the background music of my life. And now, the silence felt strange, like standing in a room after a storm, with furniture overturned and glass on the floor. I kept waiting for the next wave, but it never came. Instead, Monday morning brought something else. A message from my aunt, my dad's sister, Linda. Just wanted to check in. Heard from Chloe that the house might be gone soon. Is everything okay, sweetheart? That was how I found out. Chloe had started calling family members, and in typical Chloe fashion, she'd twisted the story. According to Aunt Linda, I had cut them off without warning, leaving them homeless out of nowhere. There was no mention of the $47,000 I'd spent over the years. No mention of the drunken insults or the months of gaslighting. Just the revised family-friendly version. Anna abandoned us. By Tuesday, I was getting passive-aggressive texts from distant cousins. I just don't understand how you could turn your back on your own parents. Not judging, just concerned. Your mom is a mess. You should call her. I didn't respond to any of them. They hadn't been around for the endless nights of financial scrambling, the emotional drain of being everyone's solution. They didn't know what it felt like to realize your own family didn't love you for who you were, just for what you gave. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was something far more dangerous. Clear. I hadn't cut them off. I had unhooked the chain. And now they were stumbling without the crutch they'd leaned on for too long. That Friday, I left work early and drove past the house. I didn't park. I didn't go in. I just looked. The yard was untrimmed. Weeds were poking through the flower beds Chloe used to force me to weed for her when she had migraines. There was an old mattress leaning against the garage, a moving truck out front. The windows were open. Inside, I could see boxes stacked in the living room, furniture half wrapped in plastic, and Chloe pacing on her phone, her free hand flailing in frustration. I couldn't hear her, but I didn't need to. She was unraveling. They all were. I should have felt guilty. But instead, I felt nothing. Just the truth. Sharp and simple. They were finally living the life they'd built, without me holding it up. That weekend, I sat in my own apartment staring at my vision board, something I had taped together on a whim months ago, in a rare moment of hope. There were photos of quiet beaches, a little bakery I'd always wanted to visit in Maine, a sleek laptop, and a blank page that just said, "Start my own." It had been a dream, something far away. But now? Now I had something I hadn't had in years. Space. Time. Resources. No more surprise bills. No more last-minute babysitting. No more emotional hostages. I made a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. And then, for the first time in a very long time, I made a choice just for me. I applied for a small business license. Just a name for now. A concept. A beginning. But it was mine. The next day, I got an unexpected email from the mortgage lender. Not about the family house, but about the credit monitoring alert tied to my name. Apparently, Chloe had tried to take out a new credit card. Under my identity. My jaw clenched. I read it twice, then opened my password manager. I reset everything. Bank logins, credit alerts, even my old Venmo account. I filed a report, notified the credit bureau, and sent Chloe one message. If you ever try to use my name again, I'll see you in court. This is your only warning. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then I blocked her. Again, because the game had changed. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. And I was taking every piece of mine back. Every dollar, every boundary, every piece of peace they'd stolen. And yet, I wasn't done. Not quite. Because they still didn't know what I had done 3 months earlier. Back when Chloe begged me to co-sign another loan just for a new used car, I'd said no. And she had lost her temper. We hadn't spoken for days. But quietly, on my own, I'd taken that moment to finally protect myself, and I was about to remind them exactly what that meant. The knock came at 7:03 p.m. on a Thursday. Not loud, not frantic, just persistent. I knew before I looked who it was. I hadn't spoken to any of them in almost a month. After the credit fraud attempt, I'd blocked every number, locked down my finances, and started truly living life on my terms. I'd picked up an online course in business law, booked a solo weekend trip to a cabin upstate, bought the softest blanket I'd ever owned, the kind I never would have allowed myself before because there's always something more important to spend on. But peace has a price, and mine had finally been paid in full. I opened the door slowly. Mom, Dad, Chloe, all standing there like a misplaced parade. Tired, out of place, and holding a folder I immediately recognized. The mortgage documents. They didn't say anything at first, just stood there, shifting uncomfortably. Then Chloe spoke, eyes glassy but voice sharp. "You need to fix this." I didn't flinch. "Fix what?" She held up the folder. "The bank says we're officially foreclosed. The lockout date is next week. We have nowhere to go. You knew this would happen." "You're right," I said calmly. I did. Mom stepped forward then, her voice cracking. "Anna, this isn't just about the house. This is about your family. We're not perfect. We've made mistakes. But we're your blood." I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. "Let me ask you something," I said. "If I had continued paying the mortgage and Chloe had kept using my name for credit and Dad kept calling me only when he needed money, would you all be standing here today? Apologizing? Acknowledging anything?" They said nothing. "Exactly," I whispered. "This isn't about love. It's about control. And now that it's gone, you don't know what to do." Chloe scoffed. "We just need help, one last time." That line, "one last time." I'd heard it too many times to count, and it was never the last. So I stepped aside, motioned for them to wait, and walked back into my living room. I pulled a small envelope from a drawer. When I returned to the door, I handed it to my dad. "What's this?" he asked, eyeing it suspiciously. "Something I did 3 months ago," I said. "Back when you asked me to help Chloe with her car loan, and I said no. That was the first time I ever really said no, and it scared me, but it also woke me up." He opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a notarized letter, a legal statement confirming that I had officially removed myself from all financial ties to the family. No shared accounts, no co-signed anything. I'd even legally disassociated my emergency contact status from all institutions connected to their address. My name wasn't tied to anything of theirs anymore. "I had it certified," I said, "so there's no confusion." Chloe's jaw dropped. "You went behind our backs and did this?" "No," I said softly. "I finally went behind my own guilt. I did something to protect myself. Something I should have done years ago." Mom's hands trembled. "But we're being evicted, Anna." "I know. You're just going to watch us walk away with nothing? You watched me drain my bank account for 5 years without blinking." Chloe's voice cracked into that sharp, bitter edge. "You're heartless." I smiled. I just finally realized my heart deserves protection too. Then I said something they didn't expect, maybe the most shocking thing of all. I didn't cancel the mortgage out of revenge. I canceled it because you all needed to finally learn how to stand on your own. And whether you do or not, that's no longer my burden to carry. They didn't speak, just stood there as the streetlight cast long shadows behind them. Finally, I closed the door. This time, I didn't cry. This time, I didn't collapse on the couch and wonder if I'd gone too far. I just walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and turned on music. Peace doesn't always come in soft moments. Sometimes it comes in a locked door, in a boundary held, in choosing yourself, even when they call it selfish. Over the next week, I heard bits and pieces. Chloe moved into a friend's basement. Mom and Dad were staying with Aunt Linda. The story they told everyone painted me as cruel, cold, heartless. I didn't defend myself, because the people who matter, the ones who know what real love looks like, they already understand. And the rest? They were never on my side to begin with. My life isn't perfect now. I still have lonely nights, still sometimes question myself, but I wake up every morning knowing one thing. I'm no longer the girl standing in the hallway, holding a grocery bag, listening to her family laugh about using her. I am the woman who walked away and never looked back. You ever have one of those moments where your entire life shifts in 5 seconds flat? Where you walk into a meeting thinking it's about one thing, and by the time you leave, everything has changed? Yeah. That was the Thursday morning I got called into a quick sync with my boss. Nothing about it felt urgent. I was still finishing my coffee when I walked into his glass-walled office. He didn't even look up, just pointed to the chair and kept typing. His silence was louder than any greeting. I'm Evelyn Hayes, 38, single mom, former senior project strategist at Heurenex Solutions. Or almost former. He finally looked at me and smiled. That tight corporate smile that never quite reaches the eyes. We're making some strategic adjustments to staffing, he said. His voice was smooth, rehearsed. And we're asking everyone at your level to take a temporary compensation adjustment. I blinked. A compensation adjustment? He pushed a folder toward me. I opened it and saw the number before I even registered the words. 55%. My salary, cut in half plus some. Effective in 2 weeks. You want me to take a 55% pay cut? Temporarily, he said like it was some kind of favor. We're realigning our budgets, trimming some fat. I felt my cheeks burn. I'm not fat. He laughed like we were old friends. Of course not, Evelyn. But look, the reality is, we're in a different market now. If this isn't something you feel good about, we'll need to find someone who will. He knew. He knew I was a single mom. He knew about the mortgage, about Ava's special needs program, about the medical bills from last year. He wasn't offering a pay cut. He was daring me to push back. I sat perfectly still. I'll need a day, I said. He raised an eyebrow. To consider the offer? To breathe, I said. And to read the fine print? He smiled again. Of course. I walked out of that office with my chin up, like I hadn't just been gut-punched, like I hadn't already started calculating what I could sell first, my car or my sanity. Back at my desk, my hands were shaking too hard to type. I stared at the screen, blinking back the sting in my eyes, and thought about Ava. 10 years old, autistic, brilliant, sensitive, obsessed with stars and planets and routines. She needed stability, safety, predictability, and I had just been handed chaos. I didn't cry. Not then. That came later, in the car, parked behind the grocery store. That silent kind of crying when your body knows there's no time for drama, just pressure relief. I thought about texting someone. But what do you say? Hey, just got told I'm worth half what I was yesterday. Want to grab lunch? Instead, I opened LinkedIn. I hadn't updated it in a year, but I clicked through the messages anyway, and one name caught my eye. Marcus Lin, CEO of Chironix, Heurenex's biggest competitor. He had messaged me 3 months ago after a webinar I'd spoken at. Just a simple, impressive insights. Let's keep in touch. I hadn't replied. At the time, I was loyal, committed, dumb. But tonight? Tonight, I wasn't loyal. I was a mother, a strategist, a woman with 9 years of institutional knowledge and no patience left for being manipulated. I clicked reply. Hi, Marcus. I think it's time we talked. Not even 5 minutes later, a response lit up my screen. I was hoping you'd say that. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the couch with my laptop balanced on my legs, half scrolling through job listings, half watching Ava's baby monitor, trying not to spiral. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that number again. 55%, like it was burned onto the inside of my eyelids. You work somewhere for nearly a decade. You build systems, mentor teams, save projects at 3 a.m. You think you've earned something more than a line in a spreadsheet when it's time to trim fat. But apparently, I was just another cost center. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I hesitated, then picked up. Evelyn Hayes? The voice was calm, confident, familiar. Yes? This is Marcus Lynn. I wanted to catch you before the day gets away. Do you have time to talk? I sat up. Now's perfect. He laughed softly. I hoped you'd say that. I've been watching your work for a while. Your client retention numbers, your crisis recoveries, your name comes up a lot. There was no small talk, no fluff, just facts, direct and intentional. I saw your webinar on cross-market adaptation last fall, he continued. You solved in 30 minutes what most teams can't figure out in a quarter. If Huranex is too short-sighted to see that, I'm not. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay composed. I appreciate that, I said, but I didn't reach out last night for compliments. I didn't respond just to give them, he replied. What happened? So I told him. Everything. The pay cut, the veiled threat, the fake corporate language wrapped around something so deeply personal. When I finished, he didn't jump in right away. He let the silence sit. And then, that's disgraceful. But unfortunately, not surprising. What do you mean? You're not the first one. Huranex has been hemorrhaging good people all year. First, it was the marketing director. Then 2 product leads. Quiet exits, NDA'd and forgotten. But I hear things. We all do. A pause. Then, what if I said we have a spot for you? I hesitated. Doing what? Building something better. Not patching holes in a sinking ship, but leading the way for once. I didn't say anything. I was too busy trying to slow my breathing. We've been assembling a new vertical, Marcus continued. It's client-facing, strategy-heavy, and we need someone who understands how to handle high-touch accounts. Someone who can think on their feet, who doesn't collapse under pressure. I exhaled slowly. When would you need an answer? Let's meet today, he said. Face to face. My team wants to meet you. If we click, you'll have an offer in hand by end of day. I glanced at the time. 6:12 a.m. Ava would be up by 7. I can drop my daughter at school and meet by 8:30, I said. There's a cafe across from our office, the Daily Grind. Table by the window. I'll be there. When we hung up, I just sat there, phone in my lap, trying to believe what had just happened. This wasn't just about money. It was about being seen, about someone recognizing the years of invisible labor, late nights, and quiet sacrifices I had made while everyone else took credit. That morning, I packed Ava's lunch extra carefully. Gave her one of those long, embarrassing mom hugs in the carpool lane. She squirmed and said, "Mom, people are watching." I smiled. Good. She rolled her eyes but giggled. And just like that, I remembered what I was fighting for. By 8:25, I was seated at the cafe. Marcus walked in at 8:29. Tailored suit, no tie. Calm but alert eyes. The kind of person who reads every word you don't say. He extended his hand. Evelyn. Marcus. We sat, ordered coffee, and then he pulled out a folder. Not a paper napkin, not a vague email. A folder. Inside, a draft offer. Title, Director of Strategic Growth. Base salary, $162,000. Bonus potential, up to 30% annually. Healthcare, full coverage, including dependents. Stock options, remote flexibility. My breath caught. It's not a favor, he said quietly. It's what you're worth. I looked at him. Why now? Why me? He smiled. Because you're the kind of person companies try to underpay until they realize they can't afford to lose you. And I'd rather invest in you before someone else wakes up and tries to do the same. I closed the folder, and for the first time in 24 hours, I smiled too. By the time I pulled into the Hurinex parking lot, the folder from Chironix was in my bag, and my mind was sharp. No shaking hands this time. No breathless panic. I wasn't coming back for answers. I was coming back to deliver one. But let's not pretend I wasn't nervous. Because what if Marcus changed his mind? What if the offer vanished the second I turned down Hurinex? What if... No. I cut that thought off. I had spent too many years second-guessing myself, shrinking myself, making myself small enough to survive in a place that didn't care if I drowned, as long as I did it quietly. Not anymore. I took the elevator to the 14th floor. Everyone acted normal. Smiled, nodded. Some even cracked tired jokes about spreadsheets and meetings. But I knew what was happening. They were watching me. Because word had spread. I had become the one they're trying to slash. And just like that, I wasn't invisible anymore. When I got to my desk, there was a calendar invite waiting. Compensation realignment follow-up, 9 a.m. Attendees, Evelyn Hayes, Jeremy Crawford, VP, Meredith Lee, HR. Meredith was the kind of HR rep who always looked exhausted, but somehow still had perfect lipstick. A walking contradiction in beige pumps. Jeremy was my boss, the same one who'd handed me a 55% pay cut with a smile like he was offering me a bonus. I walked into the meeting room right at 9 o'clock. They were already there. Evelyn, Jeremy said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Thanks for making time. I sat. Calm. Ready. Meredith smiled politely. We're just here to finalize your new compensation terms and make sure you feel supported through the transition. That word again. Supported. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I won't be accepting the revised offer, I said. Jeremy blinked. Excuse me. I'm not taking the pay cut. He leaned back slowly, folding his hands like he was dealing with a child refusing to eat her vegetables. We understand it's a big adjustment, he said, but the whole department is adapting to new financial realities. This isn't personal. That's funny, I said evenly. Because it feels personal. Meredith jumped in. Evelyn, no one is questioning your value. This is just about budget realignment. You want me to do the same work, actually more work, for nearly half the pay, I said. You called that realignment. I call it exploitation. Jeremy's face tightened. If this new arrangement doesn't work for you, we'll have to begin the offboarding process. We were hoping to retain your institutional knowledge during the transition. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. I placed it on the table, opened it, and slid it forward slowly. Meredith leaned in first. Her eyebrows rose. Jeremy didn't even touch it. He just glanced at the numbers and looked back at me. This is... from Chironix? He asked. I nodded. Director level, full salary, bonus, healthcare, stock options, remote flexibility, I said. You were right yesterday. Someone else would take me. Jeremy's jaw clenched. Meredith opened her mouth, closed it again. You've already accepted? He asked. Number, I wanted to give you the courtesy of hearing it from me directly. So you're leaving? I looked him in the eye. I'm walking away from a company that treated me like I was disposable. From a culture that hides behind spreadsheets and gaslights its employees into thinking starvation is loyalty. Jeremy glanced at Meredith. Evelyn, if you walk out now, you forfeit any severance. I smiled. Actually, no. According to my contract, still under pre-restructuring terms, a reduction in salary greater than 25% is classified as a constructive termination. I paused. I'm entitled to severance, and I'm not required to transition anything. Jeremy's face turned pale. Meredith began flipping through her notes with shaking fingers. This is a mistake, he said. Number. The mistake was assuming I'd stay silent, that I'd take whatever you handed me because I'm a mom, because I've got bills, because you thought I was trapped. I stood up. This meeting is over, and so is my time here. I turned to leave, then looked back. Oh, and if you're wondering who's going to handle the Mendoza account next quarter, you might want to ask Coronix. And then I walked out, heels clicking on the tile, heart pounding. Not with fear, with freedom. I thought I'd feel victorious the second I walked out of that glass-walled meeting room. And I did, at first. But by the time I reached the parking lot, my legs were shaking. Not from regret. From adrenaline. From the terrifying freedom of jumping off a cliff and trusting that there's ground below somewhere, even if you can't see it yet. I sat in my car, staring at the steering wheel for what felt like an hour until my phone buzzed. Coronix. HR. Your welcome email is live, paperwork attached. Let us know if you have any questions. I opened the document. Offer letter, benefits, start date, digital signature. It felt real. I exhaled, signed it, and hit send. I had a job. I had a future. Now I just had to survive the present. When I walked through my front door, it was only 11 a.m. My house was still. Quiet. Too quiet. For once, the absence of noise didn't soothe me. It made the uncertainty echo louder. There's something no one tells you about starting over. The grief doesn't always hit when you expect it to. Sometimes it shows up in the middle of the day, when you're folding laundry and realize there's no work email to check. Sometimes it hits when your child notices. That afternoon, I picked Ava up from school myself. She was waiting near the bench with her little backpack on, turning a rock over and over in her hands like it held the answers to the universe. Her face lit up when she saw me. Mom. Hey, Starlight, I said, crouching to hug her. You're early. Yeah, figured I'd surprise you. Do you have the day off? I hesitated, then nodded. Something like that. We got ice cream. We walked home. We talked about her science project, the one she was terrified no one would understand. It wasn't until we got back and she sat at the kitchen counter, slurping melted vanilla and staring at me too hard, that she asked, Are you okay? I looked up from the sink. Of course. Why? You have your brave face on, she said simply. The one you use when something bad happened. That almost broke me, because she was right. Kids always know. Even when we try to protect them, they pick up the notes we drop between sentences. I dried my hands, sat beside her. I left my job today, I said. Remember how we talked about standing up for yourself? Even when it's hard? She nodded. Well, it was hard, but I did. She didn't speak right away. Then, are we still okay? Like our house and my school and Pluto? I blinked. Pluto? My telescope. It's still mine, right? I laughed. Then I cried. A weird mix of both, actually. Yeah, baby. Pluto and the telescope in the house? All still ours. Ava smiled. Then I think you did the right thing. That night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop. I had 14 unread emails. 4 were from Huranex clients, 2 from internal teammates. The rest? All from people I hadn't heard from in months. Coworkers, acquaintances, even an old mentor. Apparently, word had gotten out. Apparently, my quiet exit hadn't been that quiet. Devin from my team wrote, Heard what happened. Proud of you. Can we talk? Clara from marketing said, They tried to cut me too. I didn't have the guts to leave. You did. But the most surprising one was from Alex Wells, former vice president of partnerships at Huranex, now at a consultancy in New York. They never deserved you. Let me know if you ever want to talk next moves. The industry's watching. That stuck with me. The industry's watching. I'd spent so long feeling invisible that I didn't realize people had actually been paying attention. Maybe not when I stayed late or fixed things quietly, but when I stood up, when I walked out, that's when they noticed. There's a saying in business. People don't quit jobs, they quit managers. But that's not true either. Sometimes we quit being overlooked. Sometimes we quit being small. And that night, sitting in my quiet house with Ava sleeping down the hall and the moonlight spilling across the floor, I realized something. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something much, much bigger. The first morning at Chironix felt nothing like my first day at Chironix. There were no onboarding delays, no forgotten passwords, no half-hearted, "let me see if someone can find you a desk" vibes. They were ready for me. And that alone told me everything I needed to know. My new team, 7 people, most of them younger, all of them sharp, stood when I entered the conference room. Marcus introduced me as a strategic force and someone who doesn't need to be told what leadership looks like. I smiled politely, but inside I was still holding my breath. There's a strange kind of fear that comes after you finally get what you fought for. It's not fear of failure. It's fear of disappointing the version of yourself who believed this moment was worth everything you gave up. By 10 a.m., I had a company laptop, full admin access, and a calendar already filling up. Chironix didn't just give me a title. They gave me ownership, influence, trust. But the real shift came at noon. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. San Francisco area code. I answered cautiously. "This is Evelyn." "Evelyn, it's Dominic Pera, Mendoza Group." I sat up straighter. Dominic was one of Chironix's biggest accounts. One of my biggest accounts. We'd worked together for 3 years. I knew the names of his kids. He sent Ava a Lego rocket for her birthday last year. He didn't sound pleased. "I just got a call from Jeremy," he said. "He told me you're no longer with the company. Said I'd be transitioned to someone named Mallory. I don't know her. I barely know Jeremy." I waited. "I didn't sign up to be bounced around. You were the reason we stayed through those outages last year. You were the reason we renewed. What's going on?" I took a breath. "I left. Voluntarily. They slashed my salary by more than half and expected me to keep the same workload. I said no." Silence. Then, "Good for you." I blinked. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. "And Evelyn, where are you now?" I hesitated. Chironix had made it clear. They weren't poaching. If clients came, they came on their own. But I wasn't allowed to solicit them. Still, I could tell the truth. "I'm at Chironix now." Another pause. Then Dominic laughed, low and dry. "Of course you are. Marcus has good instincts. I'll be reaching out to his team." Before I could respond, he added, "Tell Ava I'll be sending the new Mars rover set." It just came out. The call ended. I stared at the screen. Not poached, not coerced, just moved. 5 minutes later, another call. This time from Leanne at Dentrix Healthcare. Same story. Chironix had assigned a new account manager. Someone unfamiliar, unprepared, clearly reading from a script. "We signed on because of you," Leanne said. "You knew how to translate tech into human language. This new guy couldn't explain an Ethernet cable if his life depended on it." By 3 p.m., I'd received 4 more calls, all from former clients, all asking the same question, "Where are you now?" That evening, I sat in my new office, the sun setting behind the skyline. My desk was still bare, no family photos yet, just a coffee mug and a notepad. Marcus knocked once and stepped in. "You've been busy," he said. I nodded. "They're calling me." "I know. Dominic already emailed. So did Dentrix." He sat across from me. "We're not going to push them," he said. "If they come, they come. But if this continues, Evelyn, we're going to need a plan." "A plan?" He leaned forward. "Because if even half of your clients follow you, we're not just hiring you anymore. We're rewriting the landscape." It hit me then. I hadn't just walked out of Chironix. I'd taken gravity with me. "I didn't plan this," I said. "I know," he replied. "That's what makes it so powerful." My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, I didn't hesitate. I answered. 3 weeks after I left Chironix, the silence broke. I was in the middle of reviewing a Q3 pipeline chart when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in over a year. Gerald Whitmore, the CEO of Huranex. He wasn't the kind of man who called casually. His assistants did that for him. If Gerald was calling, it meant one thing. Something was burning. I let it ring twice, then picked up. "This is Evelyn." "Evelyn," he said, voice tight and too polite. "Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "I'm at work," I said plainly. "What's this about?" A pause. "I've been brought up to speed on what happened. Your exit. The aftermath, I said nothing. Let him hang in it." He cleared his throat. "We're seeing a concerning trend. Mendoza, Dentrix, Lumera, they've all ended their contracts. And we've been made aware they've moved to Coronix." "You don't say." "I don't have to tell you what that means for us." "No," I said. "You don't." He waited, maybe expecting me to soften, to apologize, to offer something. I didn't. "We'd like to schedule a conversation," he continued. "Discuss the possibility of rebuilding that relationship." It landed like a joke with no punchline. "You mean after gutting my salary, stripping my accounts, and threatening to replace me?" "That was not authorized by executive leadership," he said quickly. "Jeremy made some aggressive decisions under pressure." "Jeremy was following a culture you built," I said. "You don't get to pass the blame now." Silence. "Evelyn, you were a key part of our success. And frankly, we can't afford to lose what you brought to this company." "Correction," I said. "You already did." I could almost hear him blink. "Let me be clear," I added. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm just done. Surely there's a way we can—" "There isn't," I cut in. "And if you were truly interested in protecting what you had, you'd have stepped in 3 months ago. Not now, after the clients are gone, after the trust is broken, after you've lost the one thing you can't buy back." "What's that?" "Loyalty." I ended the call, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt light. Not victorious, not smug, just free. The next day, Devin called. "I gave my notice," he said. "They asked if I'd be willing to stay on to help with transition. I told them the only person I'd follow into battle again is already at Coronix." I smiled. "We've got space. I'll talk to Marcus." A week after that, I met Leanne from Dentrix for lunch. She hugged me like we were old war buddies. "They asked us to reconsider," she said, "even offered a discount to stay. And we like working with people who listen. People who treat us like partners, not just numbers on a retention report." She raised her glass. "To knowing your worth." I raised mine back. "To never forgetting it." That night, I tucked Ava in early. She was curled under her rocket blanket, her telescope angled toward the corner of the window where the moonlight slipped in. "Are you going to work tomorrow?" she asked sleepily. "Yep," I said. "But I'll be home for dinner, just like always." "Promise?" "I do." Her eyes fluttered closed, and I just watched her for a while. Because when all the dust settles, and the emails stop, and the contracts change hands, and the office doors close for the last time, it's not the money or the company name that matters. It's what you built. It's the people who followed you, not because they had to, but because they chose to. It's the peace of knowing you didn't just survive. You chose yourself. They said I was replaceable. Turns out I was memorable. And that's a line they didn't see coming.